What's up, y'all? One Piece, One Life here. And guys, the past few chapters have been nothing short of tragic. I mean, Kuma's story has been going on for so long now, but we're still getting more just about how sad his life is. It's like Oda isn't gonna, Oda, when are you gonna stop? Nah, because the last stretch of 3 chapters that we just got, it just showed us how absolutely amazing of a human being Kuma is, and how absolutely despicable the world government is. Like, we needed more proof. So guys, let's get straight into it. This is gonna be One Piece chapter reviews 1099 through 1101. But before we start, guys, please, you already know what I'm gonna say. Like the video, subscribe to the page for more One Piece content just like this. Next week's video is a big one. And share it around with your friends who love One Piece. Let's go. So obviously, 1099 starts off where 1098 left off, with King Bakori making his big comeback, and then him being like, you know what, I'm gonna just burn people in their literal houses. He's ravaging the countryside, and anime Jesus ain't having none of that. So there's usual panels of, you know, Bakori being a slime ball, kissing the celestial dragons, you know, and then Kuma goes on the offensive himself in something that ends up being called Sorbet's one-man revolution. Do you know how different you have to be to lead a revolution alone as a singular party against a whole country and win? So then after that, we basically see that Kuma, he's such a goat that people wanted him to become the king, even though he had no reason to. He didn't want to. He said, it's not my place, but the people are calling my name, so I have to step it up. And so he did. But even as king, he continued to live in his church, because that's just really who he is at his core, you know? He just let people continue coming, and he continued healing them. So he was really just king by name, though, because he, again, didn't have any interest in leading that. But then the person who did end up actually, you know, becoming the brains behind the operation, so to speak, is a person who we're introduced to by the name of King Bulldog. Now, Bulldog was the king of the country 2 generations ago. So before Bakori, Bulldog was there, which begs the question, how the hell did Bakori get instated? So times pass by, right, and people are still coming through the church to get fixed up by Kuma, just like always. And now one day, as that's happening, they all see a young girl, or like around teenage girl, who looks suspiciously like Ginny, just running around. And of course it ends up being a teen Bonnie, but they are all shocked to figure that out. So it seems like we're not gonna get an answer as to where she got her double fruit from, because she already has it apparently. But then this brought me to kind of a really sick point when you think about it, which is it possible that even as a baby, when they were still like slaves to the celestial dragons fed, or like force fed Bonnie the fruit? I don't think it's like entirely out of the realm of possibility, considering that that's exactly what happened with the Boa sisters. So then Bulldog pulls up, right? We actually see what he looks like, King Bulldog. He introduces himself and all that. And as it turns out, his mother is actually the Queen Dowager Connie. And now, a little bit later, we see Bonnie trying to practice with her devil fruit and eventually succeeding in aging herself up to the point where she and Connie look the same. Now that's interesting, because it connects back to the first time that we saw Bonnie post time skip, which was right like during the reverie when Queen Dowager Connie got there and she was transformed. Everyone was like, who the hell is Queen Dowager Connie? But now we know. Meanwhile, Bulldog is talking to Kuma privately, and he said, listen, Bakori is still trying to come back. He ran and cried to the world government and said that you kicked him out by force. And so now they're surrounding the island. Now we finally know where Kuma got the name of Tyrant from, because that's just what the government labeled him as in terms of him being the tyrant who took over and kicked out King Bakori, which obviously we know that that's not true, but that's why people like even Jinbei, who had limited reactions with him, still thought of Kuma as being this like evil tyrant kind of guy. So of course, if that's what the government puts out, most of the masses are just gonna accept that, you know. Perception and info is wildly important in the One Piece world. So after hearing that they're outside, of course Kuma's like, I'm gonna deal with them, but obviously knowing that if I go, I'm gonna be targeted, it's not like I can just come back here. So I'm gonna dip for a while. Y'all make sure to keep Bonnie safe. So obviously he goes outside, destroys the armada, and then gets his first bounty of 296 million, which is ridiculously high for a first bounty. We then cut to just various panels of Kuma sailing around, traveling the world, and I just gotta give it up to Oda, because the way that he really worked this in, I personally think is really great, is that Kuma visited all of the islands that he would end up sending the Straw Hats to. So, we see the Torino Kingdom, Boyan Archipelago, Weatheria, and it kind of adds a little bit of a new facet to his ability where at least it doesn't seem like his teleportation is just like limitless. He needs to have at least been there before, which, makes sense, Whole time, bro is just searching for and asking anybody, do you know of any way to cure sapphire scales? My daughter has this, can you help me? What a man, bro. Side note, and this made me laugh, Abdullah and Jeet are in this chapter. I'm crying because who ever thought that we were ever going to get Abdullah and Jeet ever again? They were barely in Dressrosa, and that's where they were supposed to be. It's really like Oda just went and looked at his long list of characters and said, of everyone who I could possibly pick here, who would be the most irrelevant person who Kuma can defeat? Abdullah and Jeet, there. So then we see that there's a point where Kuma and Dragon and the Revs touch base, right? So he's on the Rev ship. By that time, Dragon is saying that, oh yeah, you know how it is, Ivankov and Inazuma got caught, sent to Impel Down. And now, as Dragon keeps catching all these fraud allegations in the One Piece community, I just need to say, this chapter didn't help with that, because why does he not seem that concerned? You know what I'm saying? Which, fair enough. What can he do? Like, he can't mount a full-scale raid on, Impel Down. But even then, I just feel like there's no, he's kind of just like, it is what it is. Side note, this is also when Bello Betty officially becomes the East Forces commander, because it turns out Betty had been wanting to be promoted, but no one was gonna give her the position until Kuma said it's okay, because obviously that was Jinny's old position. So he's like, well, we need Kuma to sign off on this. Kuma of course does. But then this is where Kuma hears the name Vegapunk for the first time, because Dragon tells him, yo, there's this scientist, dude is mad smart, and his punk hazard lab just got exploded, so he's relocating, which means you can probably have a good shot of talking to him right now, and maybe he can help you out with your problem. So Kuma quickly heads back to Sorbet to pick up Bonnie, who is also just out here boxing full-grown men apparently, and then the two of them head over to what would eventually become Egghead as we know it, though now it's kind of more in the developmental phase, since it was like, 3-4ish years ago. So the two meet Vegapunk for the first time, and then also Sensamaru to a lesser extent. But basically, Vegapunk and Kuma are talking. Vegapunk says, yeah, I actually can fix your daughter, and I'm gonna do something that no one's ever done before, and that's stem cells transplant. I'm not even gonna pretend to know like I know what that is. All I know is that it'll mean that Bonnie's cured. But then seeing Kuma, he's like, wait, are you a buccaneer? Kuma's like, yeah, like, didn't Dragon tell you? Vegapunk's like, okay, say less. A, I know you broke, and you won't be able to pay the cost of this surgery. So, new plan. Let me base the model of my new Pacifista project off of you, and in exchange, I'll work on Bonnie for free. Kuma's not an idiot, so obviously he's gonna be like, of course, thank you, doctor. Though, to be fair, it's not like if he had to pay, Kuma wouldn't find a way to pay. He would absolutely find a way to pay. So as the chapter is ending, things seem to be going well, a bit of hope, but then you get that side panel of Jay Garcia Saturn just listening in on the entire conversation and having his own plans in mind. Now we get to chapter 1100. And guys, gotta say how crazy it is that there's 1100 chapters of this series. Do you know what that means? Do you know how long this has been running for? Damn. Anyway, as the chapter starts off, boom, Kizaru is here. And it's interesting because he says that he's an admiral. To me, that's intriguing timeline-wise, because he looks the exact same as when he captured Arlong and fought Arlong, which at that time he was a vice admiral. So I'm guessing this can't be too long after that. I might have to go back and check timelines because maybe it isn't, but I don't know. So obviously, because Jay heard that, he sent Kizaru here to deal with them, and then also Jay's on the phone himself. Side note, there's a small battalion of Marines who came with Kizaru, probably in case things go south, but in the corner we see, is that Drake? I think that's GS Drake. So Garcia, he goes up there, he's like, listen, you Vegapunk, you are a fool if you thought that I wouldn't catch wind of this, and you're a bigger fool if you think I'm gonna let a wanted man become the face of the Marines' new project. So obviously there's all these, he can't do it, Kuma's a villain, but With that being said, he gives 3 postulates, 3 conditions under which he'll allow this deal to be carried out. Now, these are the conditions that I and basically everybody else in the One Piece community already predicted. But A, he has to become a warlord. B, he himself also has to undergo the cyborg surgeries, not just the cyborgs. And C, he has to erase his personality. Let's go through each one at a time. Now, the first one to me is the most interesting point because Jay specifically says, there is now an opening because of the exploits of a young upstart named Ace. So wait, that begs the question, what did Ace do? Because we know that Ace was invited to become a warlord, which that is like, we knew that a long time ago, but we never knew that he beat somebody else first. Yeah, because the way he's phrased it sounds like there was a 7th warlord. Ace beat them. Then they invited Ace. Ace didn't want to be a warlord. And then they invited Kuma, and Kuma was seemingly the latest one. And if that's true, then you have to start asking, who the hell was the 7th warlord at that time? I mean, the current warlords that we know by the time that we get to the Alabasta saga, the warlords that we know of are, that's the first iteration as far as we know that the warlords were made. Yeah, it's because you got Crocodile, Hancock, Mihawk, Kuma, Moria, Jinbei, and Doflamingo. Now, guys, I'm not gonna lie to you. The second postulate by itself doesn't sound that bad because it's just Kuma agreed to make yourself a cyborg. To me, that's just screaming, Kuma, do you want to get stronger for free? Because you're getting like all these cyborg enhancements, you're getting a steel body that will be really hard to cut through, you're getting lasers. Like, I don't see how that by itself is a bad thing. Obviously paired with the others it is, but in this context by itself, I would take that gladly. But of course, it's all made horrible by the third and final point, which is honestly the real kicker, which is that Kuma has to erase literally his free will, his memories, everything. So Vegapunk himself is like, you're insane, because that's literally the same thing as killing somebody, right? And Jake Garcia is like,
who do I look like? I don't care. This is my conditions.
But then what does our anime Jesus do? He just cries tears of joy and agrees, obviously, because he said, there's nothing more that I want than for my baby girl to be cured, and I will pay any price for that to happen. I've said it before, Kuma is too good for this story. It's hard because it's like, on one hand, the One Piece world is too cruel for somebody like Kuma to live in. Put him in like Demon Slayer or something. Actually, better yet, My Hero. But at the same time, he's exactly what the One Piece world needs. We need more of these kind of people. Him, T-Bone, like genuinely good people. So they basically say Bonnie's disease will take 1.5 years to be cured, while Kuma's transformation will take 2 years to be completed. And then Jay says, well, okay, there's a 6-month interim between when Bonnie's cured and when Kuma's personalities is completely erased. Yeah, we're gonna keep Bonnie and like keep her under lock and key or whatever to make sure that you don't act out. Now the line that Akainu said all that time back makes sense. In chapter 595, Blackbeard and his crew are chilling on some island, and Bonnie is the one they captured Bonnie, but then Akainu rolls up and they dip but leave Bonnie there. And as Akainu's looking down at Bonnie, he's like, I was really, like, a chill went down my spine when they said that you escaped. So now we know it's because if she did escape, that was still in the time when Kuma still kind of had his memories. So if she escaped, he would literally be able to break free of their reign if he wanted to. He could just do whatever he wants since the leverage they have over him is gone. So literally 500 chapters ago is when Oda like dropped this seed. And so that even the next time when we see Bonnie, the first thing she says is what? I'm not gonna forgive the world government and the Marines. This man's foreshadowing, he's different. But again, Kuma's just like, yeah, sure, do whatever you need to as long as she's okay, but please make sure that whoever you send, let her just stay on Sorbet, please. Don't lock her up in some dungeon. Just let her stay on Sorbet. Don't let her know that she's a hostage. I don't want to burden her with that. So anyway, then we see a few panels of, there's Kuma, Vegapunk, Bonnie, Sentomaru, and Kizaru of all people acting as like a small cute family unit. That was just really heartwarming to see. You even see all of them doing the Nika dance, and I really just had to laugh at that part because what is Kizaru doing there? Please, can somebody tell me? He really think he part of the team. Like, why he do? So during this time, we also see that Vegapunk says, man, I just wish there were like more of me. I wish there were 5 of me. So obviously we see that that's the creation of, or at least where the idea is formulated of, the paths of punk. But interestingly that he said, I need like about 5 more of me, not 6, because there ends up being 6 of them, right? So was not all of them planned? And if not, which one of them wasn't planned? I was gonna say it was York, and then I remember that he said, I need somebody who can take a dump for me. So York was probably planned. So then we go back to Sorbet, and this is where we meet her, guys. We meet CP8 agent Alpha, also known as KALIFA'S hot sister. Now really, when Alpha came on the page, at first I was like, why does she look so much like Khalifa? Like, cause she looks exactly like Khalifa, basically. Like, low-key, they could be the same person. However, then I remembered, A, she can't be her mom because Khalifa's been born, and B, on top of that, we know exactly where Khalifa is. Khalifa is on Water 7 doing the undercover job with the rest of the CP9 agents. But yeah, this just made me think like, this has to be Khalifa's hot sister. And Khalifa was already hot, but Alpha? So then we go on and we see reactions across the world at the news of Kuma becoming a warlord. And guys, I just really need to say, I love chapters like this, where you see reactions from a bunch of people in the world. It's such a like nostalgic hit of like, damn, look at all these characters we remember like coming back. You have Sugar and Doflamingo, and Doflamingo's the shading on Doflamingo in that one panel was insane. Then you have Crocodile and Robin as part of Baroque Works, and yo, seeing Robin with the like cowgirl hat and everything like that, yo, take me back to Alabasta days, I can't lie. He's even talking about, I don't give a damn who this new warlord is. How is the, rain-based plan, the rain powder, all of that, how's that coming? Mihawk is just casually reading as a ship that he presumably destroyed explodes in the background. And then you see somebody who I didn't expect to see at all. You see Kobe and Alvida, like the Kobe when he was still on Alvida's ship, and Alvida when she was still fat. I was like, why? Like, this seems like such a random inclusion to put in. But then I thought, maybe it's because of the live action, like with the live action being relatively like recent. Oda is just like, any chance I can put in Alvida and Kobe here for like familiarity's sake, I'll do it. And then the ones I really love to see the most, you see the Whitebeard pirates, you see Ace there, you see Marco there, Whitebeard of course, you even see Blackbeard. And can I just say, what is it with Blackbeard always being in these Whitebeard pirate flashbacks? Because even when Marco was flashing back to in Wano, to when Ace was trying to, pull up to Wano, Blackbeard was just there cackling in the background. And then you see that Jinbei is the one who's actually on the ship visiting, and he's telling them of this information. And this is just really amazing, because I made a video not too long ago where my whole thing was, even though if I don't like Jinbei that much, just in terms of character and in terms of fighting style, stuff like that, how connected he is to the rest of the world, how many connections he has is insane. And this just goes to prove it. And then they even talk about what they said earlier this chapter, where they said, Ace, this is your fault. They still don't say who Ace beat, but they say it's your fault. You get Boa saying, listen, I don't care who that is at all. While Granny Neon is obviously like, these are kind of politics that you need to keep up with. Granny Neon, in my mind, is painted in a different light now that we know she was on the rock screw. Moria, of course, is lying down like the fat, apathetic slug that he is, while Perona tries to talk to him about it. Dragon, Sabo, Koala, other members of the revolutionaries, and they're all saying like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would Kuma do that? But Dragon's like, listen, I'm sure he's got his reasons. So then we see Kuma sailing away on his ship, and that's, I guess, his own personal ship, like when he's on his warlord duties. And the flag is this small hand-drawn picture that Bonnie made for him when like she was a bit younger or whatever. Like, it's just so touching, man. And then he's sending letters to his daughter from across the sea, like, even if I can't be with you right now, I'm still writing to you, I'm still thinking about you. He's really father of the year. But then the most shocking thing to me was the end of the chapter. Somebody needs to explain to me now why Kuma is on Dawn Island. Let me rewind. Last scene of the chapter, we see Luffy at age 16 training in the jungle, and he's just running away from some tiger that he made mad, and it's Luffy, he doesn't care. But then we see Kuma's parked outside of Fuchsia. So then, like I said, because that was like the end of that chapter and I hadn't read the next chapter yet, my immediate thought was, okay, wait, A, does Kuma know about the Nika Nika no Mi? Or B, does the government know that Luffy ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi? And in either way, is Kuma being sent as the Terminator to send in and kill and bring back a child. To be fair, I was answered in literally the next installment, which is why I was like, oh, never mind. So no, Kuma was just there kind of observing Luffy, looking around, and you see Luffy using Gum Gum Axe, or like practicing his Gum Gum Axe at the start of the chapter. So as Luffy's training, he says this Gum Gum Axe is going to be a finisher move that I'm going to use whenever somebody tries to take away my crew. To me, this is like really just nostalgic and kind of touching when you just think all the way back to East Blue, right? When was the first time that we saw Luffy use Gum Gum Axe? When he was defeating Arlong, the first person who was taking his crew away from him, technically, with Nami. It was because it was blackmail, and at that time Luffy considered her a crewmate. So then we see Kuma flashing back to a small conversation he had with Dragon, where he's like, Dragon, you're always looking towards the east. You seem to have some connection to, this Dawn Island place. I went on the island and I saw a certain boy. And Dragon's like, Kuma, if you're gonna talk about that, you may as well kill me now. Why does Dragon think he's Batman? But anyways, Dragon says, yeah, a child is the parent's weak spot. So we're finally getting something, anything from Dragon in relation to why he's not stepping up for Luffy. Basically, the whole idea is, obviously, Dragon is the world's worst criminal. So he doesn't want to involve his innocent child in that, because obviously if he's gonna keep his distance, because if the government finds out, then it can literally be like what happened with Kuma, where they can capture Luffy, anything can happen to Luffy, and be used as leverage against Dragon for Dragon to stop his, antics. Now, as to whether we're satisfied with that answer, I mean, me personally, I was never really that big of a Dragon fan anyway, so my only hope is that when he and Luffy eventually do meet, there's like something actually meaningful about that. Luffy only found out that he had a dad like 2 years ago. So then as Kuma continues his warlord duties, he's just roaming the seas, doing what the government tells him, he's still writing letters to Bonnie. And he's, saying all these heartfelt things, I love you, I miss you, da 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 da. But then we see that Bonnie is peeking into the mailbox and being like, no letters came, which is like, we know that the letters are getting sent. The letters aren't reaching Bonnie. What's happening? So then we see what happens. As the new crew arrives, the news crew drops the paper, like the, newspaper, and Kuma's letters. Alpha, KALIFA'S hot sister, is the one who intercepts them. Now that is where the problem is, because Alpha is like, here, do whatever you want with the newspaper, but give me that letter, and rips it up. She says that Kuma stays sending 10 letters a month to this girl, and she has ripped up every single one of them. Why? Why must she be so hot and yet so despicable? And that's what I'm saying, like, the world government is so evil, because she really didn't need to do that. Like, honestly, if Bonnie had read the letters, what would have been the harm? You're still keeping her there. It doesn't matter if you're hot. It doesn't give you the license to do whatever you want. Some people in real life that I know need to heed that message. So then we're in the church, right? Bonnie's like, Gyo, listen up. I want to spar. Fight me right now. Gyo's like, Bonnie, I know you're gonna beat my ass. Please. Can we play Jenga? Bonnie's like, no, we can't. So obviously Bonnie turns into her like big form or whatever, using her distorted future, beats up Gyo. Again, Gyo stay getting beaten up by Bonnie, by the way. And then right before Alpha comes in to give her meds, Bonnie transforms back. And we see that Connie, who's obviously taking care of Bonnie, Connie said, we're trying to hide Bonnie's powers because, as Connie puts it, the hidden eagle hides the talons, or I don't know, something like that. So then we cut to Egghead, which is looking more and more like the Egghead that we know of today, right? Vegapunk installed more of the like huge monitors, installed the holograms that Luffy was interacting with, and then we even see that he's finally like cut off his like huge head thing and like started up Punk Records. But basically it's just in the lab, there's Vegapunk, there's Kuma, and then there's the clone of Buckingham Stussy. And Stussy the whole time is just going, how interesting. I wonder, Kuma, which of us is more human? You, who doesn't have free will, or me, the clone, who does? So Kuma's a bit apprehensive about like, because Vegapunk said if they ordered you to hurt a child, you would have to. Kuma's like, I really don't want to, but it's the only way to save Bonnie. And besides that, he's just gonna keep writing until he's out of time, trying to pack all that love into the next year that he can. So he writes a letter for Bonnie's birthday, which again, because of KALIFA'S hot sister never reaches Bonnie, and at the same time, Bonnie herself is having like a birthday celebration. All the Connie, Gyo, all those people, they're just celebrating happy birthday, Bonnie. But it's so tragic because then we see at night that as much as she feels loved by all these people, she really wants her dad to write to her. She's not understanding why. So a year now passes, and we're now into like concurrent with Straw Hat storylines, right? So around this time, I would say it's like probably when the East Blue Saga maybe is happening. We see that Kuma stays popping up to help with revolutionary activities, defeats whoever the revolutionaries are fighting, and then dips without saying a word to any of the other revolutionaries. So then we finally see, look, Vegapunk wasn't lying. The sapphire scales is gone. Bonnie's like, it's finally time to go outside. Alpha's like, no. Sit your ass down. You're not going anywhere. So that makes everyone like, okay, something sus is definitely going on. She's cured and you're still not letting her go out. What's going on? But then Granny Connie, of all places, that's Granny Connie now. Granny Connie came in clutch. She arranged with Gyo and, all the other like fishermen of their village. Apparently they're fishermen. Who knew? But she arranged with all the fishermen for them to prepare a boat by the port and Bonnie to go to it. They're going to become a pirate crew and help her find her father. So then that is when the training of Bonnie aging herself to become Connie comes into play, because what she does is she ages herself into Connie, pretends that she's Connie, and heads out and says, bye, KALIFA'S hot sister. I'm going back to the palace where I live. Alpha said, I don't care what you do. You're an old bag. And so she leaves, but obviously it's really Bonnie, and she rushes to the port. So then by the time that KALIFA'S hot sister realizes, wait, that's the real Bonnie, and she's like heading out after them, Bonnie's already on the Jewelry Margarita, her ship. So then KALIFA'S hot sister is like, all right, enough of this, like, we're not playing games no more, and starts using Geppo, right, one of the Rokushiki powers, to just start flying straight towards him. She's like, once I catch you, I'm putting you in chains. What is with the world government and slavery? But then Bonnie's remembering a conversation she had with her dad about who Nika is. And Kuma said, well, Nika, he's the warrior of liberation. He fights how he wants. And then using her distorted future, her HH fruit, Bonnie like seemingly just creates a like massive like arm and is like, give me a Nika-ish future. And then delivers one of probably the most disgusting right hooks this series has ever seen. I mean, like Alpha, like her whole face is like concave, like, oh, everything is done. And that's the end of the chapter. So for final thoughts, firstly, we got to talk about the age fruit, because it seems like this kind of devil fruit has unlimited potential if it's able to do similar things to what, Gear 5 is able to do. Maybe not exactly the same, but at least freedom-wise, it grants Bonnie that kind of freedom. So if Bonnie said, give me a Nika-ish future, does that mean that the fruit, it can give her the proportions or like the powers, maybe not the exact powers, but at least like some abilities, skills of Gear 5, or at least what Bonnie envisions Nika to be? But besides that, all the pieces are like coming into place, right? Obviously, how Kuma became a warlord, how Bonnie actually set up to be a pirate crew, and eventually a supernova, all that. So I'm thinking that since we're getting back into kind of like where more current events are happening, right? Since this is now only 2 years ago, I think this is gonna probably be the end of the flashback. So next chapter, my guess is it's either gonna be just a few, like maybe half of it is just like a few short adventures like throughout the Grand Line before like becoming not a warlord, a supernova, and then meeting up with the others on Sabaody, and then a cut, like the rest of the chapter is a cut back to the current day, or it's just a straight cut back to current events and the situation on the Egghead where Kuma's probably gonna show up. And that's the saddest part. Based off of character writing and just the way that things are going, Kuma is not going to survive. I'm sorry if anyone thinks that Kuma's making it out. There's no way that Oda is writing all of this emotional censor. It's because he plans for Kuma to come, do something drastic to like save both, where it's an interaction with both Luffy, Bonnie, and Kuma all in the same place, as well as Kizaru and Santomaru, and Vegapunk, and Jay. Literally everyone who's important to Kuma or had some kind of impact in Kuma's life is going to be there. And then, yeah, just gone. But yeah, One Piece is going to be back next week, and I'm going to be in my home country of Cameroon by the time next chapter comes out. And I'm going to be there for quite a while, like over the next few breaks, or at least over this Christmas break. So I may not upload as regularly as like every week, but I will still try and have next week's video come out because I'm gonna record it after this one. And it's gonna be a great one because it's gonna be a top 30 and it's gonna be with somebody else, one of my friends. So I'm really excited for that one. But yeah, guys, that's the end of the video, y'all. Now, please, guys, you already know, like the video, subscribe to the page for more One Piece content just like this. Share it around with all your friends who love One Piece. Like I said, I'm trying to make this a community, but I need your help to do it. And also, while you're subscribing, turn on notifications. That's all from me, guys. I'll catch y'all in the next one. And always remember, One Piece, one life.